The garage is still standing. At 2122 North Clark Street in Chicago, the brick building has changed hands a dozen times, been demolished, been memorialized, been forgotten. But on the morning of February 14, 1929, inside that building, 7 men were lined up against a wall and executed in under 30 seconds. Nobody was ever charged. Nobody ever went to prison. And the man everyone knew was responsible walked free for another decade, until the very act of ordering that massacre set in motion the chain of events that would end his empire forever. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button right now. You don't want to miss what's coming next on this channel. The year is 1928. Prohibition has been running for 8 years, and Chicago is drowning in illegal money. The city isn't governed, it's divided. The South Side belongs to Al Capone. The North Side belongs to George Bugs Moran. Between them runs a border written not in ink, but in blood. Broken truces and the occasional car bomb left outside a restaurant. Capone controls the breweries, the speakeasies, the gambling dens, and enough city officials to fill a courthouse. Moran controls the beer routes along the northern lakefront and hates Capone with a fury that is, by this point, entirely personal. 2 years earlier, Capone's men had shot Moran's mentor, Jaime Weiss, on a public street in broad daylight. Moran had not forgotten. He would not forget. And in the winter of 1928, he began hijacking Capone's liquor shipments, truck after truck, load after load, thousands of dollars vanishing into the North Side night. Capone decided that Moran had to die. The plan was elegant in its. A contact posing as a bootlegger offered Moran a deal. A truckload of hijacked whiskey, premium stock, available for pickup on the morning of February 14th at a garage on North Clark Street used by the Moran gang as a storage depot and informal headquarters. Moran agreed. It was exactly the kind of deal his crew ran every week. Nothing about it seemed wrong. The trap was already closing. On the morning of February 14th, at approximately 10:30, a black Cadillac pulled up outside the SMC Cartage Company garage. 4 men got out. 2 were dressed as police officers. 2 wore civilian overcoats. The 7 men inside, mechanics, bookkeepers, enforcers, an optometrist who simply liked spending time with gangsters, assumed it was a routine police shakedown. They had been through 100 of those. They lined up against the north wall without being told twice. They faced the brick. They put their. Then the 2 men in civilian clothes produced Thompson submachine guns from under their coats, and all 4 opened fire. 70 rounds in under half a minute. 6 men died instantly. A 7th, Frank Gusenberg, was found with 14 bullets in his body, still breathing. A detective leaned over him and asked who had done this. Gusenberg looked up and said, "Nobody shot me." He died 3 hours later. The code held even then, even there, with 14 bullets inside him. Bugs Moran was not in the garage. He had been running late. Some accounts say by minutes, others by seconds, and had seen the fake police car outside, assumed it was a real raid, and kept walking. He learned what had happened an hour later. When reporters asked him who he thought was responsible, Moran didn't hesitate. "Only Capone kills like that," he said. It was the most honest thing anyone said that day. Capone was in Florida when the shooting happened. He had made sure of it. He was sitting in his Palm Island estate, visible, traceable, documented. The perfect alibi constructed with the same precision as the ambush itself. But everyone knew. The newspapers knew. The public knew. The federal government knew. And that is exactly where Capone's plan collapsed. Before February 14th, Capone was famous, but famous the way a natural disaster is famous. People feared him, followed him, photographed him at boxing matches and racetracks. There was something almost theatrical about his power. After February 14th, the theater was over. 7 bodies against a brick wall changed the public mood in a way that nothing before had managed. The massacre was too clean, too methodical, too much like an execution carried out by a government rather than a gangster. American newspapers ran the crime scene photographs, the bodies, the blood, the bullet-scarred brick, on their front pages for citizens who had quietly tolerated Prohibition-era violence as a kind of background noise suddenly demanded action. Politicians who had been bought and paid for suddenly found it inconvenient to stay bought. The federal government, already watching Capone, accelerated everything. Eliot Ness and his untouchables began systematically dismantling Capone's brewery operations, raiding sites, seizing equipment, building a case. More critically, IRS investigator Frank Wilson began the quiet, meticulous work of tracing Capone's income through ledgers, coded documents, and the testimony of men who could be turned. Capone had never filed a tax return. He had never put his name on a bank account. He had operated entirely in cash, through layers of lieutenants and frontmen. But Wilson found the threads, and he pulled them. And in October of 1931, Al Capone was convicted of tax evasion on 22 counts. He was sentenced to 11 years in federal prison, fined $50,000, and ordered to pay back taxes of over $215,000. He never recovered his empire. He never recovered his mind. Syphilis, untreated for years, was already destroying his brain by the time he walked out of Alcatraz in 1939. He died in 1947 in his Palm Island mansion, surrounded by family, a shadow of the man who had once run Chicago. The massacre that was supposed to eliminate Moran eliminated Capone instead. Not through justice. The killers were never identified, never prosecuted, never even officially named, but through exposure. Through the photograph of 7 men against a brick wall that made it impossible for America to look away anymore. Impossible for the machinery of corruption to keep grinding quietly in the background. The massacre was too visible. In trying to make a statement, Capone had made the wrong one. Bugs Moran survived. He lost his organization, his territory, his relevance. He spent the rest of his life pulling small robberies in small towns, arrested for stealing less than $10,000 in 1946, dying in federal prison in 1957. The king of the North Side, reduced to a footnote. The garage on North Clark Street was demolished in 1967. A Canadian businessman bought the bricks and shipped them to Vancouver, where he sold them individually as souvenirs. People paid good money for a piece of that wall. Some things become more valuable when they're destroyed. Valentine's Day, 1929. 30 seconds of gunfire. 7 men who didn't survive it, and 1 man who did, and who spent the rest of his life wishing in some broken corner of his ruined mind that he had never given the order at all. Some massacres don't just kill people. They kill the man who ordered them. Some massacres don't just kill people. They kill the man who ordered them.